The redistricting battle continues, with Texas moving forward to give more Republicans the power in Washington, D.C. by changing Texas congressional district maps. But the conversation about non-partisan, non-politician commissions to draw maps. And there's now a new movement in Illinois to do just that. Go to thecentersquare.com and you'll get these headlines in your inbox by just simply signing up for the newsletter. Jim Talamonte getting this headline while I was out on a brief 3-day vacation. Headline is: plan launched to place redistricting amendment before voters in 2026. Let's go ahead and dump into this, as you've got the legislative maps. Two former U.S. Congress cabinet members, they launched a new effort to stop Illinois politicians from drawing their own legislative districts. Fair Maps Illinois co-chairs Bill Daley and Ray LaHood spoke at a news conference Tuesday at the Union League Club of Chicago and announced the push for a constitutional amendment to establish a redistricting commission. Illinois' notoriety for gerrymandering maps, it gained national attention this summer as Texas House Democrats fled to the land of Lincoln in an effort to avoid voting on Republicans' congressional districts efforts in the Lone Star State. Illinois has an F grade of gerrymandering by the Princeton's Gerrymandering Project, and even Governor J.B. Pritzker joked on national TV that the maps were drawn by kindergartners. But you've got the former U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood. He joined with Bill Daley to talk about Fair Maps Illinois and their effort to get this on the Illinois ballots.
Ryan Spain, who has been our state rep for a number of years, from Peoria, was drawn out of Peoria.
It's pretty remarkable. More from LaHood.
The people of Illinois.
Oh, that's Daley.
The people of Illinois, for the first time in a very long time, have a chance to send a statement to the political system, both sides, that we want this thing to be different.
And will it actually happen, though? Here's more.
Everyone running for the state rep, state senate, other and congressional and statewide office holders will be asked the question, where do you stand on the Fair Map Amendment?
And will that actually get on the ballot? A big question, because you got to keep in mind, we've had this effort before in the past where tens of thousands, I think it was actually like 300 plus thousand, 600 plus thousand signatures were gathered to get the question on Illinois' ballot, to have a constitutional amendment to say that new maps need to be drawn by an independent commission. Because the most recent maps that were drawn after the 2020 census, they were done in secret. Democrats had a little hallway that they carved out and secure behind lock and key, and they would go behind closed doors and draw the maps, and then we'd have like a hearing or two about the maps. People would complain about them, and Democrats went ahead and voted for them anyways. Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday was asked about the efforts from this bipartisan group of Ray LaHood and Bill Daley, talking about the need for redistricting to get it on the ballot, and here's what he had to say.
I think having an independent commission is a good idea. It has to be done on a national basis, though. It can't be done state by state. We'd be unilaterally disarming as Democrats if we did that. But I think we should make it happen. There was a vote actually in the House of Representatives in Washington on a federal level. Every Democrat voted for it. Every Republican voted against it. So it's a little surprising now that Republicans have been pushing the fair map idea when they were opposed to it back then. But I have to say I have a great deal of respect, particularly for Secretary LaHood, who I've known for some number of years now, and I know that he's got the best interests of the state at heart. I would hope that included in that language of the referendum amendment would be language that would enact an independent commission when all of the states have enacted an independent commission.
Are you going to then oppose this at the state level?
No, I think that they have not yet put forward what their final language is and decided exactly how this will go forward. So I think, again, an independent commission makes sense, but it's got to be done in every state in the United States or done at the federal level for all the states.
So again, that's Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday being asked about the bipartisan push to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot for November 2026 for voters to make the decision if they want, as the advocates for independent commissions say, do they want politicians drawing maps to pick their voters, or do they want voters being able to pick who their politicians are? In one Friday afternoon, Governor J.B. Pritzker acted upon 269 bills, vetoing 2 of them, and signing a bill that the business community says will make Illinois a lawsuit inferno. And those are just a couple of the headlines. And the governor also acting on legislation dealing with cryptocurrency, digital currency, and regulations in the state of Illinois. A lot of legislation out there. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for Illinois in Focus with the Center Square on YouTube. You can get the headlines in the inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com and click newsletter and sign up for that. All right, so I was off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. It's nice to have a 2-day work week, but Friday, as I'm getting things ready, and I'm like, it's going to be a nice long weekend, and I'm going to take some family members to go see a rock concert in Chicago and just have a good time. Then, Friday afternoon, we get an email from the governor's office that governor takes bill action. And I've seen these types of announcements where it's a couple of dozen bills that he announces were signed on a Friday afternoon. I've seen others where it's 120 bills or so. I think this might be the largest announcement. And again, the headline at thecentersquare.com, Pritzker acts upon 269 bills. And this was just on Friday, vetoing 2 of them. So now we have a couple of vetoes that legislators are going to have to act upon come October during veto session. So the governor signing a ton of legislation in that announcement, 269 bills that he signed. One in particular, the Lawsuit Inferno bill, Senate Bill 328. And again, Lawsuit Inferno is what the opponents said about the legislation. But what it does, according to Republican State Senator John Curran, the leader for Republicans in the state Senate, he says he's deeply disappointed the governor ignored calls for vetoing the special interest legislation that will further deter businesses from investing in Illinois. Under Governor Pritzker, Illinois is a bottom 5 state in the nation for economic growth and job creation because of bad business policies like SB 328. You've got the issue of lawsuits reform that Republicans have been pushing for, and even the Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse saying that this would turn the state into a lawsuit inferno. So it takes effect immediately, but that's just one of the bills the governor signed. He acted upon 269 bills Friday. One of them vetoed, and that was a measure that would have streamlined family violence option screenings, but apparently it was identical language from a part of the budget bill that was enacted as well. So he went ahead and vetoed that, saying that it would avoid any confusion. But he also vetoed another measure, Senate Bill 246, and this one's interesting. The governor said it was designed to allow the Illinois treasurer to create a nonprofit investment pool and an electronic payment processing program to benefit nonprofit organizations. The governor, in his veto message, said though SB 246 is well intended and might benefit nonprofits whose missions advance interests the state desires to promote, it would unfortunately also allow Illinois' financial investments to be used to benefit fringe and extremist groups. I cannot sign a bill, the governor said, that unintentionally allows extremist groups to advance their hateful mission by exploiting state services and resources. Will legislators go and try to change the veto to an override come October? So Senate Bill 246, that's going to be an interesting one to watch because, again, you've got the measure was supported by Illinois Treasurer Michael Frerichs, a Democrat. So the governor vetoed that. Let's go ahead and pull this up just to see what the ultimate vote thresholds were. So we'll pull up votes, take a look at third reading in the House, and this is at ilga.gov. 73. So they had a veto-proof majority there in the House. What about the Senate? We've got the Senate looks pretty healthy as well. So are Democrats going to buck the governor and override his veto on this particular bill? And when you get down to the details here, as the governor says, he's worried about the resources possibly being used for political extremists who may have nonprofit organizations. But then you start getting into like a double standard question, right? I mean, Pritzker's idea of an extreme nonprofit group with extreme views is going to be different than a Republican who has questions about what they characterize as extreme views on the left. Pick your issue, right? Pick your issue. It could be about taxation. It could be about homelessness. It could be about police. It could be about issues around transgender. It could be around education. Pick your issue. You're going to get that different perspective here. So there's some interesting kind of, free speech, free association type of questions that can be worked into this. So will we see that as something that's going to be fought over during veto session? Will Democrats override Governor J.B. Pritzker's veto on that measure? I guess we shall wait and see. We'll be on the ground during fall veto session for that. So we'll keep you posted. But Pritzker signed 269 bills he acted on Friday. Signed House Bill 3756, creating an easy enrollment process for the health benefit exchange by allowing a special enrollment period for uninsured taxpayers who voluntarily seek health insurance information through their tax forms. Another bill, 1226, a House bill, raises the minimum age for drivers in Illinois and required to take annual driving tests from 75 to 79. That takes effect January 1st. Among other bills, the governor signed House Bill 1316, requiring school officials to notify the office of the principal if they become aware of a person in possession of a firearm on school grounds or become aware of any threat of gun violence on school grounds. Pritzker's signature. That takes effect immediately. We've talked about that bill. That's a bill from State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer. Among other bills, he signed House Bill 1710, requiring detailed quarterly reporting from the Illinois State Police on the progress of violent crime investigations. Dillon's Law, House Bill 2462, allowing any individual who undergoes required training to carry and administer epinephrine to individuals experiencing anaphylaxis. House Bill 2574 requires the State Board of Education to report information of each student assessment contracted and enters on its website to engage stakeholders and groups to improve transparency. I mean, listen, you can go through all of these if you'd like. This is just a small sampling. Right, House Bill 3000 requires employee IDs at school districts. House Bill 3026 requires the State Board of Education to adopt comprehensive guidance for school districts interested in expanding dual language programs. Another bill requires school districts to train all substitute teachers in lockdown drills. Another one requires counseling services under the school code to be provided regardless of citizenship status. You had another one that's been making some headlines as well about allowing for individuals who don't have social security numbers to get grants or something to that effect. But tons and tons of legislation. You can click through and see the actual list of bills that the governor signed, and it's almost like, the opening credits of Star Wars, but just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going. I could probably do this for the next 2 minutes, and it's gonna just continue to go. Maybe not quite that long, but still. A lot of legislation. So that was on Friday. Earlier this week, the governor signed separately other legislation dealing with digital currency. Here's the headline: Pritzker signs crypto regulation. So Senate Bill 1797 requires cryptocurrency companies to register with the Illinois Department of Finance and Professional Regulation and comply with state policies and procedures. Senate Bill 2319 requires digital asset kiosks, regulates them, and it says both of those took effect when the governor signed it. Digital currency, I've been watching that as well for a long time. Big question is, should states be doing this type of regulation on commerce when you've got, the idea of interstate commerce being more of a federal purview, and digital currency is not, it's not restrained to a state or a country. Digital currency is global. It's worldwide. You can send Bitcoin to somebody across the world as soon as it's processed. There's no bank that was involved, and it's a transfer of what some people would consider wealth. Now Illinois is looking to regulate that. People pushed back when this passed. I remember hearing the debate on the House floor, and it was very much like, we're going to be, kneecapping digital currency evolution if the state of Illinois has strict requirements that other states don't have. But then you get to the questions about the digital asset kiosks, and maybe you've seen these. They look like ATMs. I mean, they are ATMs, but you can go and buy Bitcoin out of that kiosk, or you can go and deposit cash and put it into a crypto wallet. I understand if some of the conversation about digital currency gets a little confusing, but you've got digital wallets, and they can be anonymous. Especially if you're savvy enough to be able to just create a digital wallet, get onto the blockchain, and it doesn't have a name associated with it. It's got an ID of sorts, but it's just like, a numerical ID, and there's a bit of anonymity added onto it. Can the FBI actually track that down? Maybe, if they're able to find out the IP address and be able to narrow in on where such transaction was coming from. But regardless, there's a lot of questions about the use of this for illicit means, and even some people worried that, number one, these digital crypto kiosks could lead to people being frauded and not understanding what's going on with digital currency, or it could help facilitate the illicit trade of drugs or human trafficking by having the bad actors get the cash for the transactions and just deposit that cash into a bank account that's not really a bank account. It's a digital asset account, and there's legitimate questions about money laundering and all of that. So the governor acting on digital currency legislation as well. So that would make it 271 bills that the governor acted on in the past week. But if you go to ilga.gov, let's go check this out together, because this is always fun to get a little bit of a tutorial of sorts. So let's go to the main page. Let's go up to reports and inquiry, and let's go to special reports. They did just recently change the website, so let's just go to legislative reports. Pending governor action right there. How many bills does the governor have left on his desk? He's only got 3 bills left on his desk. He worked through like 450 bills. Vetoed 3 of them, and now he's just got 3 bills left on his desk. All right, well, I think Friday, it's not going to be a bill dump day, I don't think. So, a little bit of relief there on my part. All right, so still some things to unpack here. But 271 bills acted on in the past week. It's a pretty busy pen. The field vying for Illinois U.S. Senator Dick Durbin's seat, it's pretty large, obviously, with Durbin announcing he's not going to take another term. You've got people on the left, people on the right, all jumping in to possibly get on the November ballot for 2026. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning. So last week was the state fair, right? We had Governor's Day on Wednesday, Democrats taking to a stage, talking about the issues, candidates getting up on stage, making their pitch to their faithful Democratic voters. And then also you had Republican Day Thursday last week, where at least one name had surfaced as a Republican for the March primary, and reporter Jim Talamonte reaching out to another Republican, so we'll hear some of that. But obviously the field is starting to get set for the March 17th primary. It's not solidified yet because you still have the petitions that need to be filed. That's going to happen in late October, and then there's going to be a challenge period where people can challenge these petitions, possibly knocking people off the ballot. So Republicans will have their own ballot. Democrats will have their own ballot. That's for the March 17th primary. And then whoever comes out on top for each party there will be on the November 2026 ballot. But let's hear from some of the Democrats. Of course, Raja Krishnamurthy, congressman from the Chicago suburbs, he stopped at the fair last week, took questions from a pool of reporters, and he talked about Senator Dick Durbin's legacy.
Look, I think Dick Durbin is a lion of Illinois politics and government, a lion of the Senate. He is a role model for how you conduct yourself as a senator, certainly in terms of constituent services across Illinois, including in downstate and southern Illinois, where he has delivered so many resources to help people. I wouldn't even begin to pretend like I could somehow replace him, but I aspire to build on his legacy of great progress.
Okay, we'll go to Spectrum.
Now, obviously, you've got Durbin, who's been in office for decades, representing Illinois as a congressman in the U.S. House before he became a U.S. senator. And the Democrats will, predictably say, hey, they appreciate Durbin's tenure and they hope to, continue his legacy. But then you've got, the Republicans who are just saying, Durbin was a disaster, right? I mean, obviously, if you've tuned into politics, you kind of already know how that goes. But what about the issues, right? I mean, party aside, what issues are these candidates pushing for? Congressman Krishnamurthy talking about those issues at the state fair with a gaggle of reporters.
I think two things. One, I believe that the number one issue are the economic pain points that people are feeling right now, especially in terms of the affordability crisis. As a former small business person, as somebody who's spent a decade working on these issues, including skills-based and career technical education, I come prepared to meet the moment to help people, with the most sensitive nerve in their body, which is their pocketbook nerve. The second thing is I've spent a decade in Congress basically standing up to bullies and bad actors. Now I need to stand up to the biggest bully, and that's Donald Trump.
So the big issue Raja Krishnamurthy is going to be running on is going after Donald Trump, and got the economy as well, and some other issues that at least that Democratic congressman is hoping to get in front of voters as he's looking for their vote in the March primary. Another Democrat that's running for Illinois Senate is Congresswoman Robin Kelly, and she says that she represents a congressional district that's representative of the entire state, even though it's only a small little portion of Illinois.
You know what? My district is urban, suburban, and rural. I go south of Danville, west of Pontiac, and the way I look at it, no matter where you live, people want a good paying job, a roof over their head, good education for their kids, access to quality health care, and they want to feel safe. That's how I approach my job every day, and that's how I would approach it statewide.
So she says her district gives her that kind of advantage over, say, Raja Krishnamurthy, because she has some rural areas in there, and that is going to give her the perspective for a statewide race. But listen, I mean, primaries are different than general elections, because primaries, you have Democrats going after Democrats, and Republicans going after Republicans, and the party faithful take to the polls and they decide who had the better message. But sometimes those primaries can really mean the party performers are going to lurch to the extreme of each side. So is that going to be difficult to navigate? How do you get a broad base of support during a primary if your views are considered to be going further on the spectrum of either the left or the right? And question I asked Robin Kelly, do you go far left in the primary to get more Democratic voters?
I go Robin Kelly. Really, I mean, that's what I do. I'm informed by speaking to a lot of different people. And of course, I represent the 2nd Congressional District now, so I try to represent my district as best as I could. And then I make decisions off of things I learn, information I receive.
So Robin Kelly running in the Democratic primary, Raja Krishnamurthy running in the Democratic primary, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton running in the Democratic primary. There could be others. And again, the filing period's October 27th, so we'll see what those names are for the Democrat side of the U.S. Senate seat. And you've got Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton getting support from Governor J.B. Pritzker, and there's a lot of questions about resources. How much money are you going to be able to pull in, especially during a primary? Is Juliana Stratton going to be able to tap into Pritzker's political wealth? Who, again, Pritzker's a billionaire, and he's put in like $200+ million into his run for office since 2018, 2019. So it's a lot of money, but is he going to be helping out Juliana Stratton with that while Raja Krishnamurthy is getting some funds coming in? Robin Kelly's been asked about the money situation. She said that money doesn't dictate who wins. But what about the Republicans? Don Tracy, former Illinois Republican Party chairman, he announced last week that he's in the race for U.S. Senate. I was able to touch base with him during a Republican Day at the State Fair last week, and he said that the issues are clear to him as to what voters are looking for in somebody who's going to be the next U.S. Senator.
The economy. Values, Midwestern values are also very important. And I'm running to champion Midwestern values in D.C. I'm running to reduce the cost of living. And also I'm running to represent all of Illinois, not just Chicago. After, with Durbin retiring, there'll be no statewide public official in Illinois, state or federal, that is from downstate. They're all from Chicago and Cook County. And I'm running to represent all of Illinois, not just Chicago, as important as Chicago is.
Now, Illinois used to have a Republican U.S. Senator and a Democratic U.S. Senator, right? Dick Durbin was senator, and then I think Mark Kirk was the Republican, and he ended up having a stroke in the middle of his term, and a lot of questions about, if somebody is medically incapacitated, should they have been replaced? So there was a lot of questions about all of that. But clearly, you've got some interesting things going on when it comes to the dynamic in Illinois, right? You've got Democrats controlling all major statewide offices, not just U.S. Senators, Duckworth and Durbin, but you've got the 5 state constitutional officers from governor, lieutenant governor, treasurer, comptroller, attorney general. So clearly, Democrats run the game here in Illinois. How do you get over that in a state that is dominated by Democrats? Don Tracy answering that question.
Well, first of all, Trump got 45% without even trying, without spending any money here, without working it. I'm going to be working the state. And if I can get that number in a typical midterm, I will win the race. So, but I'm going to focus not just on the voters that voted for President Trump, but also for the swing voters, and even there's some Republicans that didn't vote for President Trump. And so I believe in the big tent Republican Party. I believe that as state chairman, and I certainly believe it as a U.S. Senate candidate.
And Tracy also saying that Democrats, he believes, are vulnerable heading into this election.
They're so vulnerable, it's opened the door. It's one of the things that encouraged me to jump into this race, because they have been tilting leftward socialistically. They really should be now called the Democrat Socialist Party, like Bernie Sanders says. And there's going to be a primary on the Democrat side, and my guess is that they're going to be running leftward to win that primary, and that is going to create an opening for a center-right candidate like me.
Will that be the way it runs, or will Tracy have to actually really go after the primary? Because there is at least one other name that's a Republican vying for that U.S. Senate seat, and that is Jimmy Lee Tillman II. You can see his website, jimmylee2dc.com, and he's running for U.S. Senate. My reporter colleague, Jim Talamonte, connected with Tillman, and Tillman talked a little bit about his perspective on this race.
It's kind of hard for a child to get a basic foot on employment with this high minimum wage. Everybody agrees that a 15 and 14-year-old should be making $18, $19 an hour.
So you've got the issue of economics, and in particular, he's talking about giving youth the ability to get jobs by having a lower minimum wage, because with the $15 minimum wage, some businesses look at a 16-year-old and they're like, I don't know if I can, hire that person. They don't have any experience. $15 an hour is, it's a chunk of change for a small business, considering all the other things they got to pay for every hour that they have that employee on, workers' comp and such. So the economy is something that Tillman's going to be looking at in this race, but he also took aim at Don Tracy.
Well, right now, Deep State Don, never Trump or Tracy going to have a problem in Trump counties and districts.
Will that be the case? We'll be watching this race. Obviously, we've still got a lot of time before the March 17th primary. And again, a lot of names out there. Nothing set in stone for that March primary. We'll be at the Illinois State Board of Elections the morning that they actually go and start putting in their petitions and seeing who's on that list. The state's child welfare agency has long had myriad issues when it comes to protecting the health and safety of children that may come under the state's purview through a variety of means, either the issue of foster parents or the issue of, children that are being abused. So a lot of things that they need to do above board in order to keep children and families protected. But is that all being done above board, or are there unqualified people investigating families, which could lead to some bad outcomes? We'll talk more about this now here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor at the Center Square for Illinois. And we're joined by State Representative Jed Davis, who has been raising the alarm about this issue for several weeks here. Representative, thanks for taking time with us here with Illinois in Focus Daily. So I want to just let you kind of explain the genesis of you discovering that there are unqualified interns conducting investigations of families and what kind of outcomes you're familiar with from that, but also your response to DCFS saying that you're getting your facts wrong. Oh, sorry, Representative. I apologize. Go ahead. Mic is on now. Go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, it's been quite the saga the last couple of weeks. I appreciate the opportunity to chat. A family not too far out of district, their case kind of crossed my desk based on some relationships I have with parental rights groups. And I started looking into it in conjunction with those additional resources. And they had a son removed from their home, which I'm a foster parent. I mean, that happens. And a lot of times kids are in danger and we should remove them. But in this instance, the investigation was led by an intern. And man, if you have, this is just the crux of the issue. This is a sacred role, right? And if you have somebody knocking at your door, you want to make sure that they have the relevant experience to actually conduct a full investigation, because interns, by the very definition, are lacking that experience, and it's very easy to miss something. And I firmly believe the complete package that intern put together and then presented to the courts is not a full investigation. And it also violates state statute, because it's very clear that you need experience to be the lead investigator in these cases.
Representative, obviously DCFS has responded to your claims here and said that you've got your facts wrong, but you say you've got documentation showing that this is happening.
Yeah, this is mind-blowing to me, because even if you just take the law aside, when I go out and I stand in the public forum and I ask families, because you always think this won't happen to me. I'm sure this family thought that as well. And now it's almost been a year and there's 70,000 into the legal fight. So it can easily happen to anyone. And when I ask the public, is it okay to have an intern lead an investigation on your family and ultimately have the ability and authority to remove your child? I haven't got a single yes from anyone. And that's why when you go back to the law, it's very clear that an intern needs to become certified. They have a license, a CWEL, Child Welfare Employee License, but all you need for that is a bachelor's degree and you take an exam. You have zero experience. To become certified, statute says, and CMS job titles say you need 2 years of relevant experience, and then you can be promoted to certification, which I've taken their own documents, DCFS documents, and sent them to the department and said, why is the language here that says you can be promoted to certification if you're telling me all you need is your Seawell and zero experience to investigate kids? I think they're legally exposed to significant ramifications, like big legal exposure here. So they're doubling down and just continuing to push back, which is sad because we're not doing what's right by Illinois families.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the documents you have you sent out with your news release yesterday, and some of them are from 2017, for instance, talking about trying to get more investigators, but it clearly does show an indication that they're utilizing some interns, the intern training protocol that has spelled out how they're used and such. Has that changed at all? Has DCFS pointed to any kind of procedure updates to clarify the role of the interns in these positions?
No. In fact, they referenced 2017 documents back to me yesterday. We're essentially at a stalemate with them. I was exchanging emails with the director, and she said, look, we're never going to agree on this issue. So we're kind of at a draw, which is unfortunate. We're definitely going to bring some legislative solutions because I am not going to rest at all on this because it is unlawful. These individuals are uncertified, and they're knocking on people's doors and making the decision whether or not to remove a child, which is alarming. It is a scary and frightening world for families to live in. And it is, they did say, hey, we updated the intern policy. I asked for it, send it to me. It should be a simple attach a PDF, send. It's almost been a week and a half now, and I haven't seen any kind of reply from the department on it. So it's just nonsense. They keep, like I said, doubling down on a case that is obviously the law is on my side. And I, too, just real quick, I've talked to other attorneys. Like, I'm not out on a limb. I've talked to high-profile, very competent attorneys from really nationally renowned law firms in downtown Chicago. And they themselves have, and this hasn't been a 15-minute conversation, they've locked themselves in conference rooms for a week and dug through every document imaginable. And they come out and say, Jed, the law's on your side. You are right on this issue. I am telling you, there are interns, and it's more than just one instance, that are going out and investigating families as the lead investigator with no experience in making the determination whether or not to move your child.
Part of your news release included documents, as we mentioned, and one of those was an Inspector General report from 2017. Talk about that a little bit. What's so significant about what's in that particular report?
Yeah, so there's an adoption specialist, and it even says right in there that the adoption specialist isn't certified. And so what the department is trying to get everyone to believe is that the Seawell license, that the child welfare employee license, is certification, because there's two different parts of statute. One references the license, the other references certification. I'm saying they're distinct and separate. Why would they be in two different areas of statute? The department is saying the Seawell is the licensure. And then I show them their own documents. Again, to get a Seawell, you need zero experience. So what the department is telling us is we can send people to your door with zero experience, and we're okay with that. Again, I think they have legal exposure, which is why they're taking that stance. But now I'm sending their own documents back to them that talk about an adoption specialist who, by their very definition, to have that role, would have a Seawell. And it's talking about how they're not certified. And they're like, oh, it's outdated, kind of ignore that. Like, you don't understand the nuances. I'm like, well, why are you using that language then? Because I'm telling you, that's what the law demands of them. So this is this hamster wheel that we're on where they're continuing to deflect. We're laying down solid, relevant evidence, which they just shove under the carpet because I think they're afraid to come out and admit what's really happening to the families in Illinois. And
I'm looking here at page 187 of that Office of Inspector General report, and I'll just pull this up as we're talking here. After laying out what they found, they gave some recommendations that adoption specialists should be disciplined up to and including discharge for breach of confidentiality. The department should ensure that adoption specialists statewide have completed all required training for adoption certification. It says the department agrees. Is that enough? enough? I mean, do you need to see some actual substantive changes in black and white in order to alleviate these concerns?
I just thought we could come to a table and reach a great compromise. Like, we're not trading baseball cards. We're dealing with kids. And I've seen the ramifications as a foster parent of removing kids from home. We're talking about decades of emotional trauma and scars that will need to be unpackaged. And rightfully so. Sometimes you need to remove kids from harm. But we can't just send an intern to the front line and expect them to make the best educated decision for that family because they lack the experience. Like this, I keep saying that, but it's such a simple thing. And I can't even believe we're here. That document you just read, the department came back and said, well, that's an adoption specialist. And I'm like, exactly. Like, if you're dealing with investigators, so you're telling me that this is, you would think, the most critical role in all of DCFS because they have the ability to remove children. So why would they be held at a lesser standard? It is just nonsense, the stuff that they're coming back with. And I was so hopeful that we could just have an adult conversation, but they are unwilling. So we're going to bring some legislative solutions. And I'm sure, and I told the director yesterday, I think time will be the ultimate judge of who's right on this. And I will be anxiously awaiting for the day when it proves that we are interpreting the law correctly here.
Representative, we're heading into an election year. How do you have concerns, I guess I should ask, that this isn't going to be made as a prominent issue veto session or even spring session next year because it's an election year, right? I mean, you've got Democrats in control of the General Assembly. They control what hearings are going to be had and what legislation advances. Do you have concerns that they're not going to want to hear about this in an election year where Governor J.B. Pritzker is heading for a third term?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't help but kind of make that connection, which then politics. So we're putting politics before Illinois families. I mean, that's the outcome of that discussion, which, man, we need to bring this to the people because when you, again, bring it to the public forum, I haven't found a single person that sides with the department. They're all saying, no, you need the experience to remove kids. And it is a sad day when we're trying to protect politicians over protecting the families of Illinois, which just breaks my heart. And it's like, why? At times I think I'm having a hard time getting other, elected officials along my side. And I believe it's because this is a little politically risky, right? I'm out in the fray. I'm in the weeds with a massive department in the middle of an election year. And people are having a hard time coming along because it's a lot easier to just shake hands and talk about the cost of living, which is relevant. But man, when we're elected to be the voice of the people who are voiceless in government at times. And this family is being choked out saying, I have a child that has been away from me for almost a year. An intern put together the report. Why doesn't the law recognize that? How's the law just being disregarded? And then you start going down that trail. Well, there is an election coming up. Nobody wants the stain of that on their back. So we leave these Illinois families in alleys to fight alone in the dark and literally dip in to their parents' retirement incomes to lead this fight. And we just go on and talk about the cost of living and how we're helping Illinois families. The whole thing is horrifically sad.
If legislation doesn't advance to, clarify this and to have some kind of accountability, how can the courts get involved here and hold DCFS accountable? I mean, are they going to be, found violating some kind of consent decree somewhere? Or how does this play out if the legislature doesn't address it?
Yeah, no, I on the legislative front, we are going to file bills, but I'm going to put some resolutions up too and just lay it out for everyone in the General Assembly. Here's the resolution. Here's what it says. Are you on or are you off? Will you even call it for a vote? And that will speak volumes, and we'll be sure to push the outcome of that here shortly as we get back together in October. But man, the courts will be fascinating. I think you're going to see some legal action. This family's not alone. As soon as we took a public stance on this, the floodgates opened in our office. I mean, we are getting contacted every day by multiple families with their concerns and issues of their own dealings with DCFS. So helping to kind of sort all of that. But I am just saying this is going to be a big issue. There are going to be attorneys that get around these families and help support them and bring them back in front of a judge. And it may take, this stuff sadly doesn't take a week. It may take 1, 2, 3 years to get there, but I truly believe there will be justice at the end of the day.
You know, the governor's been asked about problems with the Child Welfare Agency really since before he took office in 2019. And here we are now, 2025, still substantial problems. And he says, listen, it's a big agency, and typically, you know, people will just fire somebody, and then they have, you know, a head that rolls, and they think that that's going to rectify things. But, you know, he says it's a big agency, and there's been long built-in systemic problems that they're trying to address. But he says that he's doing the work.
Yeah, like that you might be able to buy that excuse for your first 1, maybe 2 years. But when you're starting to run for your third term, you have better had it straightened out and have a record to run on. If you're going to point back and say, here's my record with the department and how we're helping Illinois families and protecting kids, like that record is abysmal. We've got failures all over the department, and you can't just keep doing the same and expecting different results. And that is exactly what the governor's doing. They called me, literally, I saw the email, a reporter sent it to me and said, Rep Davis is lying. It wasn't like, here's facts, here's why, you know, here's how our side views the situation. It was one sentence, and it said he's lying. So this is what we go to. I lay down evidence. I lay down multiple documents, and I've only shared a couple with the media. We have sent a litany of stuff to the department, and they just keep saying, doesn't apply, doesn't apply. It is crystal clear when you read it, but they just keep shoving it under the rug, and the governor's office sends one sentence back that says Rep Davis is lying. So they're not even willing to engage in an actual dialogue about facts and documents that are on paper, which is a betrayal, I think, to the voters of Illinois.
State Representative Jed Davis, I greatly appreciate you connecting on this, and I assume we're going to get some more updates as we try to get some clarity and actual substantive change that you're seeking. So we'll talk more about this in the future, no question.
For sure. Thank you.
All right. It is Illinois in Focus Daily.
Trump, Tom Homan, make an example at this right here first. Please come here first, because you know what? We're going to help you.
Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent, and we'll straighten that one out probably next. That'll be our next one after this, and it won't even be tough. And the people in Chicago, Mr. Vice President, are screaming for us to come. They're wearing red hats, just like this one, but they're wearing red hats. African-American ladies, beautiful ladies, are saying, please, President Trump, come to Chicago. Please. I did great with the black vote, as you know, and they want something to happen. So I think Chicago will be our next. I haven't spoken to the mayor. He's grossly incompetent. I haven't spoken to the mayor. No. When we're ready, we'll go in and we'll straighten out Chicago, just like we did D.C. Chicago is very dangerous, great place. I built great stuff there. I have the most beautiful building in Chicago, I think. But I hate to see what's happened to Chicago. Chicago is our greatest city, actually.
I mean, I'm sure that they're plotting in a room somewhere with Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to try to figure out some way to come after us. Honestly, I'm unafraid. I'm not daring them to do anything. I'm just saying they don't have a right to federal law and state law, separate endeavors, and they don't have a right to do the things that they're threatening to do. That hasn't stopped them sometimes, I hate to say.
Illinois taxpayers finally finding out how much the state spent of their money. In the fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2023, more than 2 years ago. But we're still waiting for the fiscal reports on how taxpayer money was spent for a fiscal year that ended over a year ago. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning. Get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com, where we're looking at this one, Illinois' fiscal year 23 financial audit released amid criticism of tardy reports. All right, so let's dive into this. I've been covering the State House for 11 years now, and one of the big stories when I first came in was understanding how late Illinois' financial reports have been. And it's been like several decades that they've been tardy and not having financial reports out for over 2 years. When they're going and, crafting budgets, they don't really know how the previous year's money was spent, let alone how the 2 previous years' money was spent. So there's been a lot of effort to try to highlight the lack of reports, but now you can get the fiscal year 2023 report at the Comptroller's website and at thecentersquare.com. You can link up to it there. But I did connect with Comptroller Susana Mendoza at the Illinois State Fair on Governor's Day to talk about the annual comprehensive financial report and its tardiness, but also why it's important that this thing comes out in a timely fashion. Here is Comptroller Susana Mendoza sharing some of her thoughts with me last week at the State Fair. And go. 1, 2, 3, go.
Certainly been waiting for it, and I've made my displeasure with the delay, I think, very, very clear. As you know, I cannot physically produce a report without the audited data. It's been a source of my frustration, but thankfully we now have that report filed, and I have filed immediately, within 24 hours, an interim report for fiscal year 24, and we are now working towards finally getting fiscal year 25 to be on a statewide auditing system instead of individual agencies, which no other state does. We're like the only holdover of this archaic way of auditing. And so hopefully for your fiscal year 25, we'll have a brand new system that means on-time audits as it should be.
Why is that important?
Well, because first of all, I think taxpayers deserve to know how their money is being spent. Our interim reports give them an idea, but it's not exact. And the credit rating agencies obviously need to know that we're managing money wisely. And the legislature, when they're crafting budgets, should be operating off of the most accurate fiscal data from the prior year. So it's really just common sense. It's unfortunate that for almost 3 decades now, the state of Illinois has produced incredibly late audits and therefore incredibly late reports. But I'm doing my part since I took office to actually change that. And I think we're finally there, hopefully in 25, fingers crossed. We'll have that first year. There might be a few hiccups, but moving forward, it should be smooth sailing.
So the idea is that they are, instead of doing individual agency audits to then compile to make a full statewide audit, they are doing just the statewide audit to get that out faster. But it's not the comptroller conducting those audits. It's the Illinois Auditor General that conducts those audits, and they have to work with the governor's office and state executive agencies and all these other agencies that are spending your tax dollars to get that finalized report that's audited by a third-party agency to have a stamp of this is officially audited. Truth in Accounting, they are a nonprofit educational outfit that looks at spending from governments and how taxpayers are impacted by that. They regularly put out reports about state-level spending, city-level spending. You can find more of their work with Truth in Accounting, including the reports they do about the state's spending, including Illinois. And Illinois getting grades, we'll talk about that with her in a moment. But I connected with Sheila Weinberg, the founder of Truth in Accounting, and she reacts to the most recent audits that is now out for a fiscal year that started over 3 years ago and ended over 3 years ago. Taxpayers just finally seeing the audited financials.
Well, number one, my initial thought on the release of the Illinois annual financial report is that it's a little bit late. This is for June 30, 2023. So it's more than 2 years, 770 days after the fiscal year end. All of the other states have been able to get their reports out. Most of them have 2024 out. And Illinois finally released this. We are not the last. Nevada, unfortunately, hasn't released theirs. The Auditor General has he made a quote. He's quoting the Governmental Accounting Standards Board that said, if financial reports are to be useful, they must be issued soon after the reported events to affect decisions. And I think there's been a lot of decisions that have been made without this useful information. For example, budget decisions, spending decisions, borrowing decisions. But we finally got this report.
So the report is out now, and you've got the comptroller saying that she's working to speed things up. In the conversation I had with Sheila Weinberg yesterday from Truth in Accounting, got her reaction to that. It's good that we're going to see some quicker reports. Mendoza saying that for fiscal year 2025, we'll get a faster report. She hopes, fingers crossed.
It's Sheila. Very interesting. She's mentioning, would that be June 30, 2025? What about the June 30, 2024? Those are not out. Should we expect those, 2 years later, next year at this time, or are those going to be a little bit faster? The state has not had a good history on releasing these on a timely basis, and they have reached a new high in the number of days, which I would consider a new low.
More about Illinois' finances. You've got Sheila Weinberg from Truth in Accounting, who reviews all states' spending, their transparency, the levels of debt that they have, and Illinois regularly failing in their annual reports from Truth in Accounting.
No, unlike the credit ratings, who don't give Illinois a good grade, but it's not as bad as we think it should be. We usually give Illinois an F. I do not anticipate they're going to get better than an F. We did find a shining note. We found that their what is we care about, which is their unrestricted net position, did get a little bit better. It went from a negative $205 billion to now we only have a negative $195 billion. What this number means is this is the money that future taxpayers are going to have to pay, money needed to pay the bills that the state has already incurred. We also found that the state received a qualified opinion. As accountants, we always want a government or entity to receive a clean opinion, but the state received a qualified opinion, which means that the books aren't, I think in the past they've received what we call a disclaimer. They've flunked their audit. They're a little bit better this year. They only got a qualified opinion, which means the financial statements are okay except for one issue. And the one big issue in Illinois is the Department of Employment Securities. They were not able to get a sufficient amount of evidence to determine whether the amounts reported were accurate or not, or whether the amounts that were paid to claimants was accurate, or were those claimants even eligible for that money. And then we also found once again that this Illinois pensions are woefully underfunded. Each one of the plans, the state employees plan, the teachers plan, and the state university plan, they only have less than 44 cents available to pay every dollar that benefits that they have promised. So they've gone ahead and promised these benefits, and they haven't put enough money aside to pay these benefits. Meanwhile, the state has claimed that they've balanced their budget, but the way they've balanced their budget is to push these pension costs, these compensation costs onto future taxpayers. So we really consider that the budget has really not been balanced.
Again, that's Sheila Weinberg from Truth in Accounting. Conversation I had with her yesterday about the state finally releasing the fiscal year 2023 audited financial statements. All of this happening, right? I mean, even the comptroller recognizes that these financial reports need to come out in a timely fashion, especially for when legislators go to craft budgets. And here we are, we approved, as the General Assembly did, a $54 billion spending plan, the most expensive spending plan in state history, based off of tax increases that kicked in across a variety of different avenues on July 1st when the budget year started. And they did all of that, spending the most, without knowing what they spent 2 years prior. Again, Sheila Weinberg addressing that question of, here we are with the most expensive budget that we've had in the state of Illinois ever, but they did that without knowing just how much they've spent in previous years.
Yeah, I consider budgets, and we do very little analysis of budgets because they are what we call political math. They just seem to, come up with numbers from wherever. Obviously not from what they've done in the past, not from their audited financial statements. And, and again, they claim they balance their budget, but they're balancing their budget by not paying more than $5 billion into their pension plans. So this would be like, Greg, you saying, my budget's balanced, but I'm not even paying the minimum on my credit cards. But by doing not paying the minimum, I'm able to claim that my budget's balanced.
So we'll review more of audited financial statements coming out of the Auditor General and the Comptroller's Office, and just what exactly it means for you, the taxpayer, and how your money is being spent. But again, we only know the audited financials from the fiscal year that ended over 2 years ago. We still don't know the audited financials of the fiscal year that ended over a year ago. And we've already started a new budget year with the largest state spending plan in state history. It's always fascinating to get into the weeds. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for Illinois in Focus Daily.